All right, welcome to another episode of Co-Founders. This is Alex Montrose. We have Lisa Montrose, and we are going to talk today a little bit about the family, right? I know a lot of times we dive into business, which is always fun, but we have definitely for some of our audience, they already know that we have a unique, not unique nowadays. It doesn't seem like it's a blended family. We're like the Brady Bunch kind of, but was the Brady Bunch like they were two sets of families? They didn't have their own kids, huh?
Do you want me to sing the song for you?
No.
I could tell. That would tell you why.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
He came with 3 boys and she came with 3 girls, and I don't know where Alice came from, but Alice was their nanny / housekeeper.
Oh, that's
whatever.
right. Okay. So they never had their own, but
so they were still blended.
They were a blended family, but they didn't have their own.
Right.
We have our own. So and we have a blended family, but we got definitely a broad. We got our oldest is 18, the youngest is 3. So we're running into, I would say, some challenges, with regards to more of the older kids in the sense, not in a bad, it's a challenge. It's not a bad thing or good thing. It's just how do you overcome the one specific thing around schedules. Schedules is a big, big, big challenge in our lives right now, right? Scheduling, understanding the schedules of all of our kids, what's going on and all that. So I'll pause there and kind of hand it off to you in the sense of, what have been some challenges we've been kind of going through in the last, I don't know, couple years that are something that, it's like a different phase of, I thought you think you have it figured out. And then
gosh, did you really think you had it figured out? I never thought I did.
Oh, I did. But that's just because I'm a fool.
Well, good for you.
Because I'm a fool. And I like to think that I have things figured out.
I actually don't think anything can set you up for the dynamics of a blended family. And you and I
no
are
book. I honestly don't think a book can.
There's nothing. I did read a really good book early on called "But I'm Not a Wicked Stepmother," and it was good because it.
Oh my gosh!
What?
That's funny. Was it a good book?
It was a good book because it just.
I didn't know you read that.
It talked about some of the dynamics of being a stepmother and what that means, and it was written by 2 women. One of them, she entered the child's life because her mother had passed away. Mm-hmm. So there wasn't another mother in the picture. And then the other one, it was a divorce situation.
Okay.
So it was interesting to kind of hear their stories and how the kids take it and that type of stuff. But I don't think anything can set you up for the dynamics of a blended family. And you came from a blended family.
Yeah.
Not you, but.
Right.
Well, you did, sort of.
Yeah.
But your previous marriage was a blended family.
Yeah.
And then this is also a blended family. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of blending. And actually in that book, I think was one of the things they said is it's not a blender. It's like a crock pot. It takes time. You throw a bunch of stuff together and it takes time. It's not going to be figured out from the beginning.
I like that. That's good. That's a good analogy. The crock pot.
The Crockpot Family.
The Crockpot Family. Oh my goodness.
I love it. We're onto something.
We are.
But it is a Crockpot family. And some things, and I think in the beginning I had this naive idea that, we were going to be this happy Brady Bunch. I mean, I really did picture the Brady Bunch of everybody's going to be best friends. And of course they'll get into fights, but at the end of the episode, everybody will hug and make up. And that's not at all what the case was. And, when we started, we had 3 kids in one room with beds on the floor. And you couldn't get into the room without walking on a bed, which was kind of insane. And in the middle of all of that, we decided to have a baby, add another one to the mix. And then we had to have a baby for our baby. So, some people get dogs for their dogs. We got a baby for our baby, which worked out because, let's be honest, the last one's my favorite. So, kidding. Mothers don't have favorites. But if I did, it would be him. Anyway, I think it's going back to the crock pot analogy is that a lot of the stuff, the ingredients don't necessarily seem like they'll go together in the beginning, but you sit long enough and it sort of mixes together.
Well, our families, it's funny. The ingredients don't go together because our kids are utterly confused around why some of our family members are quote unquote pink.
Right.
And some are brown.
Right. That was the conversation we had with our little guy last night.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
There's a lot of pink in our family.
I actually don't think they're confused by it. I think it's just an observation they make.
It is.
It is. They're more, I wonder more what the little ones think of where everybody goes. Because like at times there's 7 of us in the house. At times there's only 4, and it's a hit or miss. Like we don't even know when people are going to be there because our house is sort of the grand central station for our family because their lives really are right around our house, and so you just never know quite when that door is going to open up and who it's going to be. I think we had a babysitter a couple weeks ago, and at some point every single one of our kids had stopped by the house, and they're like, "Hey, who are you?"
Oh, that's too funny. That's funny. I think recently we've been, with all that considered, I think both you and I are really going into a new phase of like trying to understand patience at another level, because the older kids have their own lives going on. Like the 18-year-old wants to hang out and be independent, right, and go about her day, go to work, all that. We have our 15-year-old that he's 15, so he has his buddies and he's hanging out. We have our 13-year-old that that's just painting, and that's who she is, right? And then we have the little ones that we can control. We control. The other 3, though, I think the challenge we've been facing lately is that schedules are really, really conflicting at multiple times, and it's been creating a lot of uncertainty of, like, for example, a simple thing, right? So if we're having dinner or we're making dinner and we know we only have let's say the 4, it's just you, me, and the little ones. The challenge we've been facing lately is that the older ones will all of a sudden decide to be like, hey, tonight I'm staying here. And we're like, okay.
But we didn't cook salmon for you.
Yeah, we didn't cook food for you, 1, 2. And we never want to be in a place where, like, it's this internal struggle of like, what do you mean you're staying here? Like, you shouldn't be here tonight. And you should be at your other parents' house, but now you've decided to just show up because it was more convenient.
Well, and it is. Like I said, we're Grand Central Station.
We are. And we've struggled, I think, internally to be like, where do we, one, we never want our kids to feel like they're not welcome.
No, because it's their house, too.
It's their house. And I think we had that conversation with one of our kids at one point where they were asking, like, hey, is it okay if I stay? And we're like, why are you asking that question? You realize it, like, this is your house, right? And it's taken some time for our kids to get used to that. So now on the flip side,
I know. So we told them that you can always stay here, and then they tell us they're staying there. And we're like, why are you here?
Why are you here? Like, you should not be here. You should be at your other parents because we didn't expect you. Mentally, we're not there. Because when we know we have all the kids, we're mentally in a different space.
Well, it's different. It's louder. There's more moving parts because people need to be dropped off, picked up. There's food for 7 is very different than food for 4.
It is. And so this has been something that we're wrestling with and we're kind of figuring out, which I'm really excited about because next week we're going to be in Nashville. And this is part of why we're in Nashville is because we're building out a system that I'm really excited because this is our passion is really family and understanding the dynamics of a family and how do we add value to those that are raising families in similar situations. 1, 2, not even similar situations, but
any family,
because although we don't have all the answers, we can say that we've gone through a lot, and we've been through it already, right? Been through a lot of things that some parent is going to eventually go through. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited and understanding and being able to kind of flesh out the I would say like the solution, but at least the starting point for somebody to figure out how do you manage this part, because you will eventually get there where you're now frustrated because you're like, hey man, I didn't cook dinner for 8 people today. I cooked for 4. And why didn't you tell me? And why are you telling me last minute that you're showing up? And why are you not communicating this in advance? And also navigating that conversation with the other parent, because that's another challenge too. Like, and that's a whole different thing, because depending on where somebody's at, they may have a good relationship with their other parent, the other person involved, or not. Right. And that's really going to dictate the way that a lot of things get kind of handled, right? So, yeah, it's a lot of problem solving.
It is a lot of problem solving. And you know what I wonder for us too, as we're sitting here talking about it, is maybe you just assume they're always going to be there. Yeah,
but you know, there's a nice thing to assume that you're not going to have them there. Because it's like, you know, in all honesty, it's like, you know, there are days where, like, you know, okay, so when you have your kids and they're yours, you get into a mode of life, you get into a way of living that's the way life is. Okay? In a blended family, there's expectations of like, hey, I have them 50%, you have them 50%, whatever the case is, right? And you've already conditioned your mind to know, okay, I'm on during this time to be, you know, we're here, right? They're with us. We got to plan around that. Then when they're not, it's a different plan. So over the years, you condition yourself to be that way, and then to now revert back to something that, like, hold on, like, we're not in this position of thinking, in the mindset of thinking in a way like, you know, yeah, we can make that. I think we always make, at this point, we've made that assumption. They're always with us, but we've also been in a different place to where that's not always been the case until the kids got older.
And it impacts, I think, more than the two things it impacts more than anything. One, food. I mean, it is. It legitimately
for
is.
Sure.
Like when you add 3
deal.
more people to a house, like it.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Like we made dinner last night, not planning on feeding 7, and we ended up feeding 7. And fortunately, had enough.
I think Payne got like 3 beans and a little bit of rice.
I don't think she minded. She was like, "I'll eat. It's fine. I'm going to eat because you made it." But I think I think it was totally fine. But so there's that issue. The other issue then becomes you do plan your life based on, it's a schedule. I mean, no matter what, it's a schedule of like, okay, we have swim lessons, or we have this, or we have that. And when that gets disrupted, it changes everything. So if we weren't planning on running someone to basketball practice or dance or whatever it is, and all of a sudden out of nowhere, it's like, oh, well, you have to pick me up from basketball. Well, what if we had plans?
Yeah.
So I think that's more the frustrating part with scheduling is the uncertainty, and then all of a sudden your plans have to change of what you had going on.
Yeah.
Which it's never an inconvenience. They're the kids. They're our
no,
kids still.
Sure.
It's fine. It's just, it's hard. It's a challenge that we're still trying to figure out. How do we navigate this? And it's, you know, I think every episode we've filmed and talked about, I think an underlying item is communication.
Yeah, I was actually gonna
and actually communicating and making sure that everyone in the family understands the importance of communicating and why it's important.
Yeah,
because for them, you know, it's their house. You know, they go to school close to us. They go to sports close to us. They go to work close to our house. So, of course, if they get a break from work, they're going to come home and to our house and cook something, even if it's not their day with us. Yeah. They're not going to drive a half an hour to go make a fried egg. Like, that's ridiculous. But it is helpful to communicate that to us. And like, hey, I'm going to come by the house so that we know. So that also goes into things that we've talked about, like the family meeting and why that family meeting is so important. And these are the types of things you want to discuss, because otherwise there ends up being a lot of frustration from everybody.
Yeah.
You know, the kids are frustrated because, you know, they don't feel welcome potentially. We're frustrated because we don't have any expectation of, we can't plan our life. We're always on hold because we don't know who's going to be there, who's not. So it's communication.
Yeah. No, and that's a great segue, because I know that's the other component, is like, that's where I think communication, there's an opportunity to really develop communication skills, you know, with our kids, right? And helping them understand how important and vital it is to be a good communicator.
Right.
So that you can live life with a lot of, I would say, live life creating the right expectations for everybody that's going to be part of your life, whether it's your teachers, whether it's your coaches, whatever. Like, you've now you've conditioned yourself to communicate at a different level, because I actually think when the two little ones get older and all the other ones are out of the house, that communication, there's going to be a lot of assumptions, and we're just going to pick them. They're not going to have to communicate the way that the older ones have to now.
Right.
They're just not. It's different. So it's a different thing we're going to have to then teach them, right? In the sense of like, or, you know, again, I think it's going to create its own challenge for us when we get to that single family home, in the sense of like, okay, the older ones are out of the house, or college, married, whatever the case is. Two little ones are now with us and they're teenagers. Is that assumption going to be there that we just know, we pick you up at 5, you don't have to really call us because we know where you're at, we know, whatever, right? Whereas the other ones, oh, you're not here from these days and all of a sudden you show up. Like, how do you navigate that, right? In a way that, and that's through effective communication, you know what I mean? And so there's an opportunity for us, I think, within the communication space, which, again, Nashville is going to be exciting, because I think that we're going to dive into all that. So, with that said, it's your turn to give a little optimizing tip, because I think you hit some good points, and I don't want to do it this time. It's your turn. But
it's your thing.
No, it's not my thing. It's your thing.
It's your thing.
Look, we're not AT&T commercial here, so let's. That's not our thing. It's your thing. Is that how it goes? I don't know. Anyway, go ahead.
No,
okay,
I don't.
Fine. All right. Goodness gracious. This is where we segue to optimizing segment of our show, and want to touch base on, a lot of times we talk around business and ideas around the co-founding of a business and what that entails. And as Lisa and I sit here, our real passion is like the co-founding and the development of our family, right? How do we become really good co-founders of this family that we're managing, growing, and ultimately impacting and building a legacy with? So, if from a communication, we've been talking a lot about that today. Some of you may have kids that are teenagers. Some of you are like, listen to this and be like, yeah, I got it. I went through that. And some of you are either have kids that are at the younger stage, but coming up to the point where like they're starting to be more independent. So what we've come to realize is effective communication is really the critical, I think, leg in the stool that's going to keep everything from falling apart, right? There's other components to it, like, scheduling becomes part of that communicating, but having an effective meeting at the beginning or end of a week to validate that person, that kid, that child's schedule as they get older will reduce a lot of anxiety, a lot of, lack of expectation or understanding with regards to what, they're going to get themselves into for that week, and making sure that you guys are aligned from a scheduling perspective. This is something that we're developing, both Lisa and I, with regards to how to run an effective family meeting, how to build an effective schedule so you can understand these things when it comes up with your kids as they get older. So start thinking along the lines of like, what would a family meeting look like for you? How would you put that together? And then what is the expectation you're going to get out of that with regards to like understanding your kids' schedules as they get older and become more independent, especially if they're driving and so on. Anything you want to add to that? I know I just said a lot of words there.
I think you got it.
Just a lot of words. So with that said, this is always, we're going to continue to touch on these topics because we're coming up with, there's always something new that comes up in our lives with regards to our family, and it's good to share because we know that somebody out there is experiencing something similar. So do you want to sign us off? And I think unless you have any other final comments, we good?
I think we're good.
All right.
So awesome. As always, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time on Co-Founders.